The welding torch sparked against metal as Daniel Reed finished the last seal on a cargo hauler's engine panel. Sweat dripped down his face in the cramped repair bay of Outpost Station Meridian. He wiped his forehead with an oil-stained rag and stepped back to admire his work. Another satisfied customer. Another day of honest work on the edge of human space. His communicator chirped with an emergency broadcast. Station control sounded nervous, which was unusual for the normally calm operations crew. A damaged vessel had entered their sector, broadcasting distress signals in multiple languages. The ship design was unknown, possibly dangerous. All residents were advised to remain in their quarters until further notice. Daniel cleaned his tools and locked his workshop. He had no intention of hiding in his small apartment while someone needed help. That wasn't how things worked out here on the frontier. People helped each other, regardless of where they came from or what they looked like. He had learned that lesson years ago when a Centaurian trader had saved his life after a reactor malfunction. Now he paid that kindness forward whenever he could. The station command center buzzed with activity when Daniel arrived. Security officers argued about protocols while Administrator Wells studied the damaged vessel on the main screen. The ship looked organic, almost alive, with scales covering its hull and strange biomechanical components visible through the breaches in its armor. Daniel had seen plenty of alien ships during his 15 years on Meridian, but nothing quite like this. "I'll go make contact," Daniel volunteered, stepping forward. Wells turned to him with raised eyebrows. "Reed, we don't know what's on that ship. It could be hostile, or it could be someone who needs help," Daniel replied. "That's a distress signal, not a threat. Let me check it out." After a moment of consideration, Wells nodded. "Take a security escort. Stay in constant communication. First sign of trouble, you get back here immediately." Daniel suited up and crossed the docking tube to the damaged vessel. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Inside, the ship felt warm and humid, like walking into a greenhouse. The walls pulsed with a faint rhythm, as if the entire structure was breathing. Bioluminescent strips provided soft lighting along the corridors. He found the pilot in what appeared to be a combination living quarters and engineering bay. She stood nearly 8 feet tall with dark crimson scales covering her body. 2 large wings folded against her back, tucked tight to fit in the space. Golden eyes with vertical pupils watched him approach. Her appearance would terrify most humans, but Daniel had learned long ago not to judge people by how they looked. "Hello," he said slowly, holding up his empty hands. "I'm here to help. Your ship sent distress signals." The dragon-like alien studied him for a long moment. She seemed exhausted. One arm wrapped protectively around her midsection where scales looked scorched and damaged. When she spoke, her voice was deep and melodic, struggling with the words, "Help. Ship dying. Cannot. Prepare alone." She gestured toward a massive wound in the ship's internal structure where cables and organic tissue hung in twisted tangles. Daniel approached carefully, examining the damage. Whatever had hit this vessel had torn through multiple systems. The ship's living components were failing, starved of nutrients and energy. He had never seen technology quite like this before, but the basic principles made sense. This was engineering, just a different approach than humans used. "I can help," Daniel said, meeting those golden eyes. "My workshop has tools and materials. We can move your ship to my repair bay. It will take time, maybe several days, but I think we can fix this." The alien's posture relaxed slightly. Relief showed in her expression, a universal emotion that transcended species. "You help me? Not fear?" "Fear doesn't fix ships," Daniel said with a small smile. "I'm a mechanic. Fixing things is what I do. Come on, let me help you to my workshop. You look like you need rest and medical attention too." She nodded slowly. "Name is Wraith, merchant, traveling when attacked. I'm Daniel. Welcome to Meridian Station. Let's get you and your ship taken care of." As Daniel guided Wraith through the docking tube, he noticed how other station residents reacted. Some stared in shock, others whispered nervously. A few nodded in greeting, accepting her presence without judgment. This was frontier life, where diversity was normal and everyone depended on each other for survival. Back in his workshop, Daniel began a detailed examination of Wraith's ship. The damage was extensive but repairable with the right approach. He would need to fabricate custom parts and learn how the biomechanical systems functioned. It would be challenging, maybe the most difficult repair job of his career, but that was fine. Daniel had never backed down from a challenge, especially when someone was counting on him. Wraith settled into a corner of the workshop, watching him work with those intense golden eyes. She seemed surprised by his matter-of-fact acceptance of her appearance and his immediate willingness to help. Daniel didn't think much of it. This was just what decent people did when others needed assistance. What he didn't know was that Wraith was far more than a simple merchant. She was High Arbiter Wraith Syndra of the Galactic Council, sent to evaluate whether humanity deserved a place among the civilized species of the galaxy. Her accident had been carefully staged, a test to see how humans would react to a vulnerable alien in need. And Daniel Reed, a simple mechanic who just wanted to help someone fix their ship, had just become the most important human in the galaxy. His actions over the next few days would determine the fate of his entire species. Daniel spent the first morning mapping every system in Wraith's ship. His diagnostic scanner hummed as it collected data, building a three-dimensional model of the vessel's internal structure. The technology fascinated him. Where human ships relied on mechanical components and electronic systems, this vessel grew its parts organically, like a living creature. Cables were actually nerve-like conduits, and the power core functioned more like a heart than a reactor. Wraith watched from her resting spot, still recovering from her injuries. Station Medical had provided basic treatment, though their knowledge of her species' biology was limited. She seemed stronger today, more alert and curious about Daniel's methods. "Your approach is methodical," she observed in her careful standard galactic. Her language skills had improved overnight, or perhaps she had simply been too exhausted to speak clearly before. "Every ship has its own personality," Daniel explained, not looking up from his scanner. "Human ships, alien ships, doesn't matter. You have to understand how they think before you can fix them properly. Your vessel here, she's hurt and scared. We need to be gentle. Work with her natural systems instead of forcing repairs." Wraith's head tilted slightly, a gesture that Daniel was learning meant interest or curiosity. "You speak of my ship as though she lives, doesn't she?" Daniel gestured at the pulsing walls. "I can see her breathing, feel her temperature changing. She responds to touch and reacts to damage. Maybe not alive the way you and I are alive, but not dead either. Something in between." For the first time since their meeting, Wraith smiled. The expression transformed her fearsome features into something almost warm. Most species do not understand this. They see ships as tools, objects to use and discard. "You see deeper." Daniel shrugged and continued his work. He had always believed that treating things with respect, whether machines or people, led to better results. His father had taught him that lesson working on old trucks back on Earth. The principle applied just as well to biomechanical alien vessels. By midday, he had completed his diagnostic assessment. The news was not good. The primary neural conduit that connected the ship's brain to its propulsion systems had been severed completely. Without it, the vessel could not coordinate its functions properly. Wraith would be stranded unless they found a solution. Daniel brought his findings to Wraith along with lunch. He had researched her species' dietary needs using the station's xenobiology database and prepared a meal that should be safe and nutritious. The gesture clearly surprised her. "You did not need to do this," Wraith said, accepting the food carefully. "You need to eat to heal," Daniel replied simply. "Besides, we're going to be working together for a while. Might as well be civilized about it." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Daniel explained the damage. Wraith listened carefully, asking intelligent questions about his assessment. Despite her merchant cover story, she clearly possessed deep knowledge of engineering and ship systems. "The conduit cannot be regrown quickly," Wraith said when he finished. "It would take months, perhaps a full year, for my ship to regenerate that system naturally. Then we don't wait for it to grow back," Daniel said. "We bridge the gap with an artificial conduit. I can fabricate something that interfaces with your ship's organic systems on both ends, but uses human technology in the middle. It won't be perfect, but it should get you flying again." Wraith studied him with those golden eyes. "This is beyond your species' normal capabilities. The interface between mechanical and organic systems is extremely difficult. Many advanced civilizations struggle with such hybrid solutions." "Probably," Daniel admitted, "but difficult isn't the same as impossible. I've got some ideas. Let me try a few prototypes, see what works. Worst case, we fail and think of something else." Over the next several hours, Daniel worked on creating test components. He used medical-grade materials that wouldn't be rejected by biological systems. combined with standard data transmission hardware. The trick was making both sides speak the same language, translating mechanical signals into something the organic ship could understand. Wraith eventually moved from her resting spot to work alongside him. She explained the principles of biomechanical harmony, how living ships maintained balance between their organic and technological components. Daniel shared human engineering concepts, showing her how modular design allowed for quick repairs and replacements. They made a good team. Daniel's creative problem-solving complemented Wraith's deep technical knowledge. Where he saw possibilities, she understood limitations. Where she knew theory, he provided practical application. Together they began designing a solution that neither could have created alone. Night cycle fell over the station, but neither noticed the time passing. Daniel was too absorbed in the challenge, and Wraith seemed equally invested in the project. When Daniel finally looked up from his workbench, he found Wraith had fallen asleep in her chair, exhausted from the long day of work and recovery. He quietly draped a thermal blanket over her shoulders and returned to his designs. The solution was taking shape in his mind, a hybrid conduit that would allow Wraith's ship to fly again. It would require precision fabrication and careful installation, but he believed it could work. What Daniel didn't know was that Wraith had not been sleeping. She had been observing him through half-closed eyes, watching how he worked into the night without complaint. She noted his dedication to helping a complete stranger, his refusal to give up when faced with a seemingly impossible challenge, his genuine care for her well-being. The Galactic Council had sent her to evaluate humanity's worthiness for membership among civilized species. They worried about human aggression, their rapid expansion, their history of conflict and violence. The Council wanted to know if humans could be trusted, if they could cooperate with alien species, if they possessed the wisdom and compassion necessary for galactic citizenship. In her first full day on Meridian Station, Wraith had learned more about humanity than months of data analysis could have provided. Daniel Reed represented something the Council had not anticipated. Not a diplomat speaking carefully crafted words, not a leader putting on a show for alien visitors, but an ordinary human simply being decent because that was who he was. Wraith wondered what her final report would say about humanity. Whatever judgment she rendered, it would affect billions of lives across dozens of worlds. The responsibility weighed heavily on her, made heavier by the growing friendship she felt toward this kind mechanic, who saw past her fearsome appearance to treat her as an equal. Daniel noticed her stirring and brought over 2 cups of hot beverage. "Thought you might be thirsty. This is tea, a human drink. I made it weak. Wasn't sure how you'd react to the caffeine." Wraith accepted the cup and tasted it carefully. The flavor was pleasant, earthy, and warm. "Thank you, Daniel. For everything." "Just doing what anyone should do," he replied, returning to his workbench with his own cup. 3 days into the repair work, Daniel and Wraith had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Each morning began with Daniel checking the fabrication machines that were slowly creating the hybrid conduit components. The parts required precision manufacturing, with tolerances measured in micrometers. Any imperfection could cause the interface between mechanical and organic systems to fail catastrophically. While machines worked, Daniel and Wraith would discuss the installation process. They had become genuine partners in the project, each respecting the other's expertise. Wraith had stopped pretending to be a simple merchant, instead demonstrating deep knowledge of advanced engineering principles. Daniel noticed but said nothing. Everyone had secrets, and Wraith's past was her own business. "The interface points are the critical element," Wraith explained, using a stylus to mark locations on the ship's schematic. "If the transition from mechanical to organic is too abrupt, my ship's immune system will reject the implant. We need gradual integration zones." Daniel nodded, studying the marked locations. "Like a medical prosthetic. The body accepts it better when the transition is smooth. I can create graduated interfaces using a biomimetic coating. It will trick your ship into seeing the conduit as part of herself, rather than a foreign object." They worked side by side through the morning, fabricating the specialized coating and applying it to the conduit segments. The process was delicate and time-consuming. One mistake could ruin hours of work, but neither rushed. Patience and precision would determine their success. Around midday, Rodriguez from the station's trading hub stopped by with food. The older woman had known Daniel for years and had become curious about his unusual guest. She brought a variety of dishes, both human and alien cuisine, uncertain what Wraith might prefer. Figured you two were too busy to eat properly, Rodriguez said, setting down the containers. Can't fix ships on an empty stomach. Daniel made introductions and the three shared lunch together. Rodriguez asked polite questions about Wraith's travels and cargo runs, accepting the merchant story without suspicion. She shared gossip about station life, recent arrivals and departures, the minor dramas that made up daily existence on a frontier outpost. Wraith listened carefully, asking her own questions about the station's diverse population. Meridian hosted dozens of species, all living and working together in relative harmony. Conflicts happened, of course, but residents generally resolved problems through discussion and compromise rather than violence. After Rodriguez left, Wraith seemed thoughtful. Your people adapt well to diversity. Many species struggle when first encountering aliens, yet humans seem comfortable with our presence. Daniel considered the observation while cleaning lunch containers. I think it's because we come from one planet with so much variety. Different languages, cultures, appearances, beliefs. We spent thousands of years learning to live together, making mistakes and slowly improving. By the time we reached the stars, dealing with aliens wasn't that different from dealing with humans from other continents. Not all humans share this view, Wraith noted carefully. I have read about your conflicts and divisions. True, Daniel admitted. We're not perfect. Some humans fear anything different, cling to old prejudices, resist change. But I think most of us understand that cooperation works better than conflict. Out here on the frontier, you learn that fast. Help your neighbor today, they help you tomorrow. Species doesn't matter when you're all breathing the same recycled air. They returned to work on the conduit installation. The first segment needed to be positioned precisely within Wraith's ship, connecting to the severed neural pathways. Daniel crawled into the tight space with his tools while Wraith monitored the ship's responses from outside. The installation process was tense. One wrong move could damage the ship's delicate organic systems beyond repair. Daniel worked slowly, his hands steady despite the awkward position and poor lighting. He talked himself through each step, a habit from years of solo repair work. Aligning the anterior interface. Checking clearance. Good, no interference with the arterial conduits. Applying the bonding compound. Holding position while it sets. Hours passed. Daniel's back ached and his arms trembled from holding the same position, but he maintained his focus. Finally, the first segment locked into place. The ship's systems accepted the implant without rejection, exactly as they had hoped. He emerged from the access tunnel, sweating and exhausted. Wraith helped him to his feet, concern evident in her expression. You should rest, she said. That was physically demanding work. 1 down, 3 to go, Daniel replied, wiping his face. But yeah, I need a break. Let's give your ship time to adapt to the first segment before we continue. They monitored the integration over the next several hours. The ship's biological system slowly incorporated the mechanical component, growing new connections and pathways around it. The process was beautiful in its own way, proof that organic and mechanical could coexist and cooperate. Night cycle arrived, and Daniel insisted they both rest properly. Tomorrow would bring the second installation, potentially more difficult than the first. They needed to be sharp and focused. As Daniel prepared to sleep on a cot in his workshop, Wraith spoke quietly from her corner. Daniel, may I ask you something personal? Sure, he replied, settling onto the uncomfortable cot. Why do you do this work? You could charge much more for your services, work for a corporate fleet, live in comfort on a core world. Instead, you remain here, helping whoever arrives, asking little in return. Daniel was quiet for a moment, staring at the workshop ceiling. I used to ask myself that same question. Then I realized I was looking at it wrong. I don't stay here despite the low pay and difficult work. I stay because of it. Every ship I fix, I help someone continue their journey. Maybe they're carrying medicine to a colony. Maybe they're heading home to see family. Maybe they're just trying to make a living like everyone else. Whatever their story, I play a small part in it. That matters to me more than credits or comfort. Wraith absorbed this quietly. The Galactic Council evaluated species based on technology, military strength, economic output, political stability, all measurable, quantifiable factors. But Daniel's answer spoke to something deeper, harder to measure but perhaps more important, a philosophy of service, of finding meaning in helping others, of valuing purpose over profit. She had been on Meridian Station for 3 days. In that time, She had observed dozens of interactions between Daniel and others. His reputation as someone who helped anyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay. His easy acceptance of alien visitors, his community's diversity and cooperation, his personal ethics that valued compassion and craftsmanship equally. The Council had sent her expecting to find humanity's flaws and weaknesses. Instead, she was discovering their unexpected strengths, not military power or advanced technology, but simple decency and genuine kindness, the qualities that might actually matter most in a civilization. Tomorrow they would continue the repairs, but tonight Wraith began composing the mental framework of her report. Whatever she eventually wrote would be based on truth, on what she had witnessed rather than what she had expected to find. Daniel Reed was teaching her about humanity, one welding seam and interface connection at a time. The fourth segment of the hybrid conduit was nearly complete when the alarm sirens began wailing throughout Meridian Station. Daniel looked up from his calibration work, immediately recognizing the specific pattern. Security breach. Hostile vessels approaching. Wraith moved to the workshop's communication panel, her expression sharp and alert. No longer the weary merchant, she carried herself like someone accustomed to danger and command. Daniel noticed the transformation but focused on gathering information. Administrator Wells's voice came through on all channels. This is Station Control. 3 unidentified vessels are approaching at high speed. They are not responding to hails and are displaying weapon signatures. All residents move to interior sections immediately. Security teams to defensive positions. Daniel's stomach tightened. Meridian had minimal defenses, enough to deter casual raiders but nothing that could stop a determined attack. The station relied on its remote location and lack of valuable cargo to avoid becoming a target. Someone had decided that calculus had changed. They are after my ship, Wraith said quietly, studying the sensor readings on the panel. Pirates tracked my vessel's signature. They know its value. What do we do? Daniel asked, his mind already racing through options. I should leave. Draw them away from the station before they attack. Wraith moved toward her ship, but Daniel caught her arm. Your ship isn't ready. The conduit needs another 12 hours before it can handle flight stress. You launch now, you'll tear the repairs apart and be dead in space. They'll catch you easy. Wraith's jaw tightened. Then I condemn your station to attack by my presence. Not if we fight, Daniel said. He opened a station-wide channel. This is Daniel Reed. Any volunteers who want to help defend the station, meet me in Cargo Bay 3 in 5 minutes. Bring tools. The response surprised him. Within minutes, over 30 people arrived at the cargo bay. Human mechanics, Centaurian traders, even a few families with older children. Rodriguez showed up carrying a plasma cutter. Others brought whatever equipment they could grab. We don't have weapons, someone pointed out. How do we fight armed pirates? Daniel climbed onto a cargo container so everyone could see him. We're on a space station. Everything here can be a weapon if you're creative enough. Cargo loaders become barricades. Pressure doors become traps. Welding equipment becomes defensive tools. We know this station better than any attacker. That's our advantage. He organized people into teams, assigning tasks based on skills and equipment. Some would create obstacles in key corridors. Others would set up ambush points. A few technical specialists would work on ways to disable pirate ships if they docked. Wraith watched the organized chaos with growing amazement. Humans were coordinating with aliens without hesitation, all working together to defend their shared home. No one questioned whether to help. No one suggested surrendering Wraith to save themselves. They simply accepted the challenge and prepared to meet it. Your people surprise me, Wraith said quietly to Daniel. They're not just my people, Daniel replied. Look around. Humans, Centaurians, Belters, others, we're all station people. That's what matters right now. The pirates made contact 20 minutes later. Their leader appeared on the main view screen, a scarred Belter with cold eyes and a predatory smile. Meridian Station, you are harboring a valuable vessel and its pilot. Surrender both immediately and we will leave peacefully. Resist and we will take what we want by force. You have 10 minutes to decide. Administrator Wells looked at the assembled defenders and then back at the screen. This is Administrator Wells. The individual you seek is a guest of our station. We don't surrender guests to pirates. You have 10 minutes to leave our space before we defend ourselves. The pirate leader laughed. With what? You have no warships, minimal weapons. You cannot stop us. Maybe not, Wells admitted. But we'll make you regret trying. 10 minutes starts now, the channel closed. Everyone moved to their assigned positions. Daniel found himself at a critical junction near the main docking ports, where pirates would likely try to force entry. He had a welding torch, a plasma cutter, and a dozen creative ideas about how to use them. Wraith stood beside him, refusing to hide. "I can help. I am strong, fast, and trained in combat." "I know," Daniel said. "That's why you're here. But Wraith, this isn't your fight. These people are defending you because it's the right thing to do, not because they expect anything in return." "That is precisely why I must fight alongside them," Wraith replied. The first pirate ship docked hard, cutting through the station's outer hull with industrial torches. Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented into space before emergency bulkheads sealed. Daniel's team was ready. The pirates cut through the interior door, expecting easy passage into the station. Instead, they found a corridor filled with obstacles and defended by people who knew every access point and alternate route. What should have been a simple raid turned into a confusing maze of resistance. Daniel used his plasma cutter to seal doors behind advancing pirates, cutting off their retreat. Others disabled life support in sections, forcing attackers into predetermined routes. Rodriguez's team used cargo loaders to create moving barricades that protected defenders while limiting attacker movement. The fighting was chaotic and terrifying. Daniel had never been in combat before, had never wanted to be. But his home was under attack, his friends were in danger, and someone needed help. That was enough. One pirate broke through toward Daniel's position. The man raised a weapon, confident in his advantage. Daniel triggered the plasma cutter not at the pirate but at an overhead conduit. Superheated coolant sprayed across the corridor, forcing the attacker to retreat, burned and screaming. Wraith moved like flowing water, her strength and speed overwhelming unprepared pirates. But she was careful, disabling rather than killing when possible. Daniel saw her deliberately pull strikes that could have been lethal, showing restraint even in combat. The battle lasted 30 minutes, though it felt like hours. Finally, the pirates retreated to their ships. They had expected an easy target and found determined resistance. 3 of their number lay unconscious in station corridors captured by defenders. The cost wasn't worth the prize. As the pirate vessels began disengaging from the station, new contacts appeared on sensors. A council patrol ship responding to the distress signal Meridian had broadcast. The pirates fled at maximum acceleration, unwilling to face official authority. The council ship docked properly, and its captain came aboard to assess the situation. She was a tall, elegant alien with features similar to Wraith's species. Her eyes widened when she saw Wraith standing with the defenders. "High Arbiter," the captain said, bowing deeply. "We received word of your situation. Are you unharmed?" The words hung in the air. High Arbiter, not merchant, not simple traveler. Daniel turned slowly to look at Wraith, understanding dawning on his face. Wraith met his eyes, her expression conflicted. "Daniel, I need to explain." But Daniel was already walking away, heading back to his workshop. He had risked his life defending someone he thought was a friend. Instead, she had been lying to him from the beginning. The betrayal cut deeper than any weapon. Wraith watched him go, knowing she had lost something valuable. She had gained data for her report, evidence of humanity's character and courage, but she had lost Daniel's trust, and that price suddenly seemed far too high. The council captain waited for orders. The station residents tended their wounded and began repairs, and Daniel locked himself in his workshop alone with the realization that nothing about the past days had been what it seemed. The test was over. Now came the consequences. Daniel sat alone in his workshop, staring at the partially completed repairs on Wraith's ship. High Arbiter. The title echoed in his mind, bringing with it implications he was still processing. The Galactic Council sent arbiters to judge species, to evaluate their worthiness for membership in the greater civilization. Everything had been a test. Every conversation, every shared meal, every moment of cooperation had been calculated and observed. He felt like a laboratory specimen, examined under a microscope without his knowledge or consent. The friendship he thought they had built was contaminated by deception. How much of Wraith's behavior had been genuine? How much had been performance for her evaluation? A knock on the workshop door interrupted his thoughts. Daniel ignored it, but the door opened anyway. Administrator Wells entered, looking tired and concerned. "Reed, we need to talk about what happened." "I fixed her ship," Daniel said flatly, "or I was fixing it." She can get her own people to finish now. Wells pulled up a chair, sitting down heavily. That woman, Wraith, she's not just any council member. High Arbiters have enormous authority. They evaluate entire species for potential membership. Their reports can determine whether a civilization joins the galactic community or remains isolated. So this whole thing was a setup, Daniel said. Damaged ship, helpless traveler, all of it fake. Just to see how we'd react, apparently, Wells confirmed. Though I don't think the pirate attack was planned. That was real danger, real risk. Wraith fought alongside us when she could have revealed herself and ended it immediately. That means something. Daniel shook his head. It means she stayed in character. Good spy work, nothing more. Or it means she cared what happened to us, Wells suggested. Reed, I'm angry too. Testing us without consent feels wrong. But think about it from their perspective. The galaxy has seen species join the Council and bring war, exploitation, corruption. They need to know what humanity really is before they open their doors to us. They could have asked, Daniel argued. Sent official observers, been honest about their intentions. Would we have acted the same way if we knew we were being judged? Wells asked quietly. Would you have helped Wraith if you knew she was an arbiter running a test? Or would you have been cautious, careful, trying to say and do the right things instead of being yourself? The question struck home. Daniel knew the answer. If he had known, everything would have been different. More calculated, less genuine, which was exactly why they hadn't told him. She still lied, Daniel said, but his voice lacked conviction now. She did, Wells agreed. The question is whether you can understand why, even if you don't like it. After Wells left, Daniel returned to staring at the ship. His anger was fading, replaced by a more complex mix of emotions. Betrayal, yes, but also understanding. The Council had responsibilities to protect their member species. Humanity's history was violent, aggressive, expansionist. The Council would be foolish to accept humans without careful evaluation. Another knock. This time Daniel knew who it would be before he answered. Come in, Wraith. She entered slowly, still in her true form but somehow seeming smaller, less imposing. Her golden eyes met his with clear regret. I owe you an explanation and an apology, she began. You owe me the truth. Daniel interrupted. All of it. Who you really are, why you came here, what happens now. Wraith nodded and began speaking. She explained her role as High Arbiter, one of 5 judges who evaluated species for Council membership. She described humanity's application, submitted years ago by early diplomatic contacts. She detailed the Council's concerns about human aggression and their need for certainty before allowing a potentially dangerous species into their civilization. The situation with my ship was staged, Wraith admitted. The damage was real but deliberately inflicted in a controlled manner. I could have repaired it myself with time and proper facilities, but we needed to observe humans interacting with a vulnerable alien. See how you would respond without the artificiality of official diplomatic channels. You lied to me, Daniel said. Made me think we were friends. That is the part I regret most, Wraith said quietly. Because we did become friends, Daniel. That was never false. Your kindness, your dedication, your unwillingness to give up on a difficult problem, those things moved me genuinely. I found myself hoping you would pass the evaluation not for abstract reasons of galactic harmony, but because I did not want to write a report that would condemn someone I had come to respect. Daniel absorbed this, searching her expression for deception. He saw only honest remorse. What about the pirate attack? He asked. Was that stage 2? No, Wraith said firmly. That was real danger. I could have revealed myself immediately and ended it with a word. Council authority would have made the pirates flee without fighting, but doing so would have invalidated the evaluation, shown humanity responding to power rather than principle. So you let us risk our lives to preserve your test, Daniel said. I let you demonstrate who you truly are, Wraith corrected. You did not fight because you knew I was important. You fought because defending guests and neighbors was the right thing to do. That distinction matters greatly to the Council. And now, what happens now? Wraith moved to the window, looking out at the station beyond. Now I write my report. I will recommend that humanity be accepted as probationary members of the Galactic Council. Full membership will depend on your species demonstrating continued cooperation and peaceful intentions. But the door will be open. Because we helped you fix a ship? Daniel asked skeptically. Because you revealed your character, Wraith replied. You showed compassion across species boundaries. You demonstrated creativity and adaptability in solving unprecedented problems. You organized your community to defend each other without regard to species or origin. You chose restraint over excessive force when you had the opportunity to kill your attackers. These qualities suggest humanity is ready to join the larger galactic civilization. She turned back to face him. But Daniel, I am only one of 5 arbiters. My report will be influential but not decisive. Other arbiters are evaluating humans on different worlds and different situations. The final decision will balance all our findings. Daniel considered everything she had said. The anger was still there, but tempered now by understanding. He could hate the method while accepting its necessity. The real question was whether he could forgive the person who had deceived him. Your ship still needs work, he finally said. The conduit requires 12 more hours of integration before it's flight ready. If you want it finished properly, I'm the only one on this station who knows the system well enough to complete it. Wraith's expression brightened with hope. You would still help me? After everything? I'm not doing it for you, Daniel said. I'm doing it because I said I would fix your ship and I keep my promises. What happens after that? Whether we're friends or just acquaintances who shared a strange few days, that's something we'll figure out later. That is more than I deserve, Wraith said quietly. Probably, Daniel agreed. But it's what you're getting anyway. Come on, let's finish these repairs. They worked together through the night, monitoring the conduit integration and making final adjustments. The conversation was stilted at first, both uncertain how to interact now that deception no longer stood between them. But gradually they fell back into their previous rhythm. The work itself became a bridge, a shared purpose that transcended complications of trust and honesty. By morning, the repairs were complete. Wraith's ship hummed with renewed vitality, its systems balanced and functioning properly. The hybrid conduit worked perfectly, a testament to what humans and aliens could create when working together. 6 months passed before Daniel heard from Wraith again. Life on Meridian Station returned to normal after her departure. The repairs to the station's hull were completed. The captured pirates were transferred to proper authorities, and Daniel went back to fixing ships for whoever needed his services. News of the Council evaluation spread through human space like wildfire. Some people were angry about being tested without knowledge. Others were hopeful about potential membership in the galactic civilization. Politicians debated, philosophers argued, and ordinary people went about their lives while waiting for a decision they could not influence. Daniel tried not to think about it too much. He had done what he believed was right, helped someone who needed assistance. Whether that impressed a panel of alien judges was beyond his control. He focused on his work and his community, the things that mattered regardless of what happened in distant council chambers. The message from Wraith arrived on a quiet afternoon. Simple text, no video, just words on a screen. Daniel, the council has reached a decision regarding humanity. I wanted you to hear it from me before the official announcement. We voted to accept humans as probationary members of the Galactic Council. The vote was close, 3 in favor and 2 opposed, but the decision stands. Your species will have a voice in galactic affairs, though full membership rights will be contingent on continued good behavior and cooperation. I will be returning to Meridian Station to deliver the news formally. I hope you will be willing to see me. Wraith. Daniel read the message 3 times, processing the implications. Humanity was in. Not fully, not without conditions, but the door was open. Billions of people across dozens of worlds would be affected by this decision. Access to new technologies, new trading partners, new ideas and possibilities. All because of evaluations conducted by 5 arbiters, one of whom he had helped fix a ship. 2 days later, Wraith's vessel returned to Meridian Station. This time, she arrived openly with proper announcement and ceremony. Administrator Wells organized a formal reception, inviting station residents and local dignitaries to hear the council's decision. Daniel attended but stayed in the back, uncomfortable with the attention. People knew he had been evaluated by Wraith, and many wanted to thank him or ask questions. He deflected both, insisting he had simply done his job and nothing more. Wraith's speech was diplomatic and formal, very different from the struggling merchant he had first met. She explained the council's decision, the conditions of probationary membership, the expectations and opportunities humanity now faced. Her words were measured and official, appropriate for the historic occasion. But when the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Wraith sought out Daniel. She found him in his workshop, predictably, working on a Centaurian trader's navigation system. You did not stay for the celebration, she observed. Not really my thing, Daniel replied, not looking up from his work. Besides, someone needs to fix this ship. The Centaurians have cargo to deliver. Always helping others, Wraith said with a small smile. That has not changed. Why would it? Daniel set down his tools and finally looked at her. So humanity is in. Congratulations, I guess. Your evaluation worked out. It was not only my evaluation, Wraith reminded him. 4 other arbiters conducted similar tests on different worlds. Some reports were less favorable than mine. But you recommended us, Daniel said. I did, Wraith confirmed, because of what I observed here. Not just your actions, Daniel, but those of your entire community. The way diverse species cooperate on this station, the way humans prioritize helping others over personal gain, the creativity and adaptability you demonstrate when facing unprecedented challenges. These qualities convinced me that humanity deserves a chance. Even though we're violent and aggressive and all the other things the Council was worried about, every species has darkness in their history, Wraith said. The question is not whether you have made mistakes, but whether you learn from them and grow. I believe humanity is on that path. Daniel considered her words, then gestured to a chair. Want to help me with this navigation system? It's got a weird intermittent fault that I can't quite trace. Wraith's expression brightened. She settled into the chair and examined the system. Show me what you have found so far. They worked together for the next several hours, falling back into their previous partnership. The awkwardness from their last meeting had faded, replaced by comfortable familiarity. Trust, once broken, was slowly being rebuilt through shared effort and honest communication. I owe you an apology, Wraith said during a break, not for the evaluation itself but for the manner in which it was conducted. The Council's methods are necessary, but not without ethical complications. You deserved honesty, or at least the choice to refuse participation. Would have made things different if you had asked, Daniel pointed out. Yes, Wraith agreed, but perhaps there are better ways to evaluate species than deception. I have recommended the Council examine our methods. Whether they listen remains to be seen. You're pretty high-ranking, Daniel said. Don't they have to listen to arbiters? We have influence, not absolute authority, Wraith explained. The Council is composed of hundreds of species, each with their own perspectives and interests. Change happens slowly, if at all. They finished the navigation repairs as night cycle fell over the station. The Centaurian trader would be pleased with the work. Another satisfied customer, another problem solved. Will you be staying on Meridian? Daniel asked as they cleaned up the workspace. For a few days, Wraith said. Then I must return to Council duties. But I hope to visit again when circumstances allow, if you would welcome such visits. Daniel thought about it, weighing his feelings. The betrayal still stung, but he understood the reasons behind it. More importantly, he valued what they had built together, the friendship that had formed despite deception, the partnership that had created something neither could achieve alone. You're welcome here, Daniel finally said. Next time, though, try to arrive without staging an accident. Just dock normally like everyone else. Wraith laughed, a warm sound that reminded Daniel of their first days working together. I promise. No more tests, no more deception. Just a friend visiting when she can. Good, Daniel said. Now come on. Rodriguez is making dinner for anyone who wants it. You should meet more of the community properly, without the pressure of evaluation. They walked together through the station corridors, past the diverse inhabitants going about their evening routines. Humans, Centaurians, Belters, and others living and working alongside each other. This was humanity's future now. Integration into something larger than themselves. Daniel had played a small part in making that future possible. Not through grand gestures or diplomatic skill, but simply by being decent to someone who needed help, by treating an alien with kindness and respect, by refusing to give up on a difficult problem, by defending his community when threatened. The qualities that made him a good mechanic, a good neighbor, a good person. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. Just basic decency extended across species boundaries. Months later, the first human ambassadors arrived at the Council's central station. Years after that, human scientists began collaborating with alien researchers on projects that benefited multiple species. Decades into the future, human ships would carry Council authority to distant sectors, helping maintain peace and order in the galaxy. All of it traced back to individual moments of choice, individual acts of compassion and courage. To mechanics who helped stranded travelers, to communities that defended their guests, to people who chose cooperation over conflict, understanding over fear. Daniel never considered himself a hero or a diplomat. He was just a mechanic who fixed ships on a frontier station, but sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone who saw a problem and worked to solve it. Someone who saw a person in need and offered help without expecting reward. In his workshop on Meridian Station, surrounded by tools and half-repaired machinery, Daniel Reed continued doing what he had always done. Fixing things that were broken, helping people who needed assistance, building connections one welding seam at a time, and somewhere in the vast council chambers, in reports and records that would survive for generations, his simple acts of kindness stood as proof that humanity deserved their place among the stars, not because humans were perfect, but because they were trying, because they could recognize strangers as friends, aliens as neighbors, and differences as opportunities rather than threats. That was enough. That would always be enough. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of people, human and alien alike, just trying to make their way through life, helping each other when they could. Building something better together than any could create alone. Daniel smiled as he powered down his workshop for the night. Tomorrow would bring new ships to repair, new challenges to solve, new opportunities to help others. The work would continue, one day at a time, one act of service at a time. That was how civilizations were built. Not through grand declarations or sweeping changes, but through countless small choices made by ordinary people who simply tried to do the right thing. And in the end, that made all the difference.